Come along. Hello, Emily. We are just beginning, so you haven't missed anything. My name is Martin, and I'm going to be your trainer today. And my background comes from education. I worked in the UK in all different educational phases and taught across the STEM subjects, and left mainstream education from senior leadership and then joined EdTech. And one of my jobs is to work with Microsoft and train people how to use various aspects of Teams and other programs to make your life simpler. We're all busy people and we want to make sure that we can streamline what we do, find easy ways to do that, but also engaging for staff and for students. What we're going to cover in this session today is we'll have a brief introduction to the Teams itself and what different aspects it might offer you. But at the same time, you will focus today on exclusively how to use the assignments part of Teams and how that might lend itself to working with students, setting work, and also getting that back in to consider how it might complement more traditional methods. People often ask me at the beginning of this session, well, are you proposing this replaces setting homework in a traditional way? Are you replacing this replaces other platforms? Well, no, it doesn't have to. The answer is you need to do what's right for you, your school, your staff, your parents. You know the demographic you're working with, and it needs to be something that you know is going to gain traction and be successful. And it might be that you need to have training in the first place and that you have digital ambassadors in the school that will champion this before you roll out wider. It may be that you don't have anything and actually getting this in place will allow you to reach students that maybe still aren't back with you or are maybe working distantly at the moment and haven't been able to join in school in class. They can still get the same experience regardless of where they are. So we'll look at assigning the work to students. We'll also look at how you then mark the work that you receive back and you give feedback, and we'll give you a demo of all that. There'll be opportunity to ask questions, as I said, moving through the session, but also there'll be an opportunity, I'll stay at the end, to ask any questions and really reflect as to how this is going to fit for where you are. Before I begin, has anybody got anything they wish to ask or anything want to flag? No? Okay. We today are going to offer you a chance to become a certified MIE. This is a program from Microsoft as we work with Microsoft as a partner. This is linked to what's called the Microsoft Education Center. So we will give you a code at the end of this session that you can redeem in the Microsoft Education Center. An MIE is a Microsoft Innovative Educator, and those are normally people in school who are interested in technology and how it can enhance what's offered. You will find lots of different courses in the Microsoft Education Center, and they're very much self-study but quite informative and very intuitive to use. They've got screenshots, animations, they'll take you to different platforms. So whatever you're interested in, you can choose your own courses or learning pathways, and then those will allow you to study when it's right for you, but also have the skill set to be successful in whichever role you have in school. As I said, I will give you the link for that later, and I'll also give you a code and you can go and you can redeem. The one thing you'll need to do is sign in where the fingers are pointing in the top right hand corner. If you've already got a Microsoft Education Center account, fantastic. You can just sign in and you can redeem the code. If you haven't, you can sign up. It's really quick and easy to do. And I'll also share the code in the chat as well for anyone that's joining this afterwards. We often find people that become a certified MIE, Microsoft Innovative Educator, then start on a path of their own CPD, and very often it can lead people to becoming an MIE expert. That's the next level up. And if you are an MIE expert, you can start to support people in your community of the school really effectively, but it may be other schools that you work with, or it might be that you reach out and you start to work with other schools globally. This can sometimes lead you to becoming a showcase school and working with Microsoft and adopting technology in a very large change management process, but to digitally transform the learning and all the different roles in the school. Anyway, back to today. We'll come back to the MIE accreditation later and the MIE code, and you'll be able to get a copy of that. Teams itself, just to begin, I know we've from the feedback we've received before the session, we've got lots of people coming from different schools and also from outside of the UK, although I'm based in the UK, and that's fine. Teams will work adequately where absolutely wherever you are. It doesn't matter which subjects you're teaching as well, or educational phase. I've used this really successfully in UK terms in primary schools, from everything from about 6-7-year-old pupils right the way through to sixth formers that are 17 and 18. You may choose to use certain aspects of it and rein back and gradually introduce them as they get older, but it isn't a barrier to entry. The important thing to consider with Teams is it's thought of as a digital hub, and it's a single place to go and get all different types of resources, but also engage in different types of activities to bring everybody together. Frequently get asked, well, what can we use to access Teams? And you can get it on pretty much anything now. So it will work on a desktop Windows computer. That can be in a web browser. The Microsoft Edge browser, the new Chromium version, is absolutely best, although it will work quite nicely on Chrome and Firefox if you prefer an alternative type of browser. And it's in preview at the moment on Apple Macs in Safari, but you can get a dedicated Teams app, which is free to download. You sign in with your address and it will give you a very similar experience. There's a couple of extra functions that are available in the app version compared to the browser version, but for what we're doing today with assignments, there'll be absolutely no difference. We understand that students at home will have a whole range of devices, and you don't have to be concerned about them accessing from different devices and the experience they're going to get. There's an app available for iOS, and that's Apple devices. There's also an app available on the Google Play Store for Android. And if you want to, you can also use it on Linux if you're a bit left field and you don't like mainstream operating systems. The only thing that I would flag with students joining from different devices, be it tablet or mobile phone, is that the screen can get quite fiddly if they have to work. It'd be fine to join for a video call, but if they've got to start to type and half the screen is covered up with a keyboard, that can be a little bit more fiddly. But at the same time, it's really useful, and I get positive feedback from all of the ages I've worked with, pupils and students, that they find it really useful to just jump into Teams. They can use the messaging functionality, which is safe, so you're safeguarding them. They're in a ring-fenced environment, thinking of the safety there, so they could be working with just their peers in a class, but they can get to their work and they can get to their homework, but everything's in one place. That philosophy of it's one hub with everyone connected is really key, and that's why the assignments bit of Teams works very nicely with all of the other work that you might be doing. It can work across staff, students, governors, trustees. If you've got multi-campus and you've got schools that are spread across different buildings as well, it can work in that respect too. As well as it being a single hub to connect everyone, it connects everything you're going to do, whether it's making a Teams call, be it an audio call, a video call, having a quick chat, a bit like instant messaging, or using the suite of Office 365 tools or other associated programs such as Flipgrid you might be using for formative assessment or get student feedback, but you've also got a raft of third-party apps that will plug directly into Teams as well. So if you're using ThingLink for interactive pictures, or maybe you're using Kahoot for quizzes in class, all of that can be in one place too. So it means a lot less distractions because you can have it as tabs to click on, and the pupils and students can stay in one place, and that's Teams. So do think of this single hub, and that single hub philosophy is what we're going to look at with assigning work. So you can use assignments to set work for students or pupils. That could be a piece of homework, it could be a piece of coursework, it could be a one-off. I said at the beginning of this that many schools will consider how this complements other things they're doing with setting work. So it may be that you are going to have a designated project, and that's an online project, so therefore you're going to use assignments in Teams. It might be the other extreme, that you haven't got anything at all at the moment and you want to make sure that you've got that platform to set work, and regardless of whether the students are coming into class with you or whether they're not able to come into school, they can still get the work that's set. Or it could be the reverse. I'm seeing a lot of people that are subscribing to very expensive online homework platforms, and they want to save money, and they're thinking, well, we're already using Microsoft in a large way. Can we use the assignment part of Teams to stop having to subscribe and buy into another platform? The beauty of assigning work in assignments is that it can link to all the other work that you've got, maybe at OneNote class notebook, it's a piece of work you've uploaded, it's a Word document, a PowerPoint, an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF. But you've also got the clarity that you can use things called rubrics, and we'll look at a rubric in a little bit, but the rubrics can add extra depth of explanation to understand just what a teacher's expecting from a student when they turn the work in. And it's really quick and easy to distribute. If you've been working on something like OneNote class notebook, which is a good analogy to use, it's like a lever arch folder with section dividers and pages, but in a digital form. If you've been using that in class, then you can take pages of that and you can extend that and set it for assignments and homework at the same time. The assignments module itself doesn't have to be limited to just summative assessments. It can be used really successfully for formative assessments, and you'll see in a little bit just how easy that is to build those assignments. The assignments themselves are very, very streamlined. When you set an assignment, you press a create button. I'll show you this in a live demo next, but you get an option to use an existing homework. So we talked about workloads, where you can minimize workloads by accessing a homework you've used from a previous year. Maybe it's in what's called an archive team from a class you used in the previous academic year, and you can bring it through. You can dust it off, you can change a few details, save an awful lot of time and reuse it, or you can start again and you can use a quiz which links to Microsoft Forms, or you can just create an assignment and attach all of your own work. Once you've got it assigned, you'll then be looking at giving feedback to students and informing them as to how successful they've been in their homework, whether they need to go back and revisit any element of it and improve it, or just give verbal feedback if you're not giving a marked feedback. But that feedback can be in written form, it can be in audio, so there's lots of scope to do that depending on whether you're using class notebook pages or whether you're using other resources. The gradebook's really easy to access, and it comes up from your point of view as a teacher on virtually any device, and it's good now that with recent changes over the summer, Microsoft enable you to drill down through your markbook, but also get that data out of Teams. It's not stuck in there. You'll see how you can export it. So what we'll do next is we'll move over to the Teams itself, and we'll have a look at a demo environment, and I'll show you how to set an assignment and how to look at the feedback from those assignments you've already had back in from students. While I'm just swapping over, has anybody got any questions they wish to ask? Pop them into the conversation, or you unmute and just have a chat with me if you wish to. At the end of this session, I will give you some links that you can go to in the MEC, and those links will enable you to pick up resources that we're using today. So if you're thinking, well, how do I get those materials? They will also be given to you at the end. Just swapping over to link through, it's syncing through now. So you should see on screen Microsoft Teams, and I'm viewing it today not in the Teams app but in the Edge browser. As I said, it works perfectly well in either. I've got quite a few teams here as I work with various schools, and some are primary, some are secondary, some are colleges. But today we're going to focus on what's called a class team. So you can create different types of teams to suit purposes, but you'll only be able to set assignments in a class team. So when you go to create a team for a set of pupils or students, be it an intervention group or a whole class, you need to choose class team. I'm going to use a primary example this morning, but you will be able to get exactly the same functionality whether you're working in secondary, whether you're a college, and it will work in the same way. So don't worry if you think it's going to be different depending on your educational phase. Things have changed a little bit running up to summer and over the summer holidays. Some of the functions that used to be in what we call the we space across the top. So this is the we space. It's things that we share together in things that we can interact with as a member of staff and students. Well, some of those are moved over here on the side, and one of those now is assignments and grades, which previously used to sit along the top. And today we've managed to reach that by going to the me space on the left, selecting teams, and then going into the relevant class team that I wish to use. If I go to the assignments module on the side, it will take me in, and what I will be able to see, because I've been working in this class team for a while, I've got some things which are assigned, and you see some of them were assigned a little while ago. I've got the work that's been returned in by the students, and I've got some that I'm drafting. You as a teacher can draft your assignments in advance, and they will sit here privately. I'm logged in as a teacher at the moment in the drafts option, and you would see this view as a teacher, not as a student. You can see exactly what you've got either live as assigned work that's out there waiting to be completed and returned back, returned work which you might need to go and mark, or the drafted work which maybe you're going to share with students in the coming week or the following weeks. And you can do that in advance, so you might get some time, some PPA time to prepare. Well, that's fantastic. You can get those written, but also if you are going to pick them up from a previous class team, your old class teams will be able to you to go and grab them from there. Here, I'm going to begin at the very start and go to create. So from existing, I won't labour too much today, but it allows you to look backwards into a previous year's class team that you had for teaching, pick up an assignment from there and bring it through and just reassign it, and it will then attach itself to your new students. But today I'm going to show you quizzes and assignments. So I'm going to go into a quiz first. This launches Microsoft Forms. We are going to be delivering future training sessions on Microsoft Forms in September and October, so keep an eye out. You can sign up for those if you haven't yet used Microsoft Forms. If you're familiar, you will see a list of all the forms that you've created previously here. You can reuse a quiz, or you can create a new quiz. You go to new quiz, it will launch forms inside of Teams, and you can give your form a title, you can give it a new question, and away you go. Now, I won't spend time doing that this morning. What I'm going to do is go to create and quiz, going to pick up a practice maths quiz. I'm going to click next, and then it brings me straight into the assignment, and you can see there the practice maths quiz is there. Quizzes I tend to use for either checking progress in learning as we're moving through a piece of work. I want to just establish if the learning is secure. Do I need to go back and revisit anything? Have I got a particular group of students in the class that are really struggling with a piece of knowledge or a skill and I need to have an intervention group? Or am I absolutely fine to keep moving forwards? I could also use quizzes summatively, and it might be at the end of a unit of work. Again, I want to just establish how secure that learning is, so I'm going to give them a Microsoft Forms quiz. The beauty of using a forms quiz is that it's self-marking. Yes, you will need to put the effort into creating it, but you can use it year after year. You could maybe use it with other classes. If you're working in a department in a school and you can share those, or you're in a primary school and you've got parallel intake years and maybe you've got 2 year 2 classes, if someone creates one form, share the form with another member of staff, cut down on the workload that they've got. But it's self-marked. So when you set this assignment here in Teams, you don't actually have to even give a feedback comment in a large way here. If you've used a quiz and a Microsoft form, it marks itself, and you can get the form to give feedback or branch off into alternative resources to support them if they've struggled with an aspect that you've set in the quiz itself. So this might be practice maths quiz, so it's picked up the title of the form. I can give instructions if I wish, and then I can go through and set how it's going to be distributed. I will show you that more thoroughly next when we go through how to set a full assignment. If I want to save that and come back to that later, I can press the save button. If I'm happy it's ready to go out, I can press assign, and it automatically goes live to the pupils and students, so it would come up for them in their list of assigned work. They'd also get a notification in their posts in the class team, or I can discard it if it's absolute nonsense and I don't want to keep it. So click yes there and it's gone. You can go into creating a full assignment as well. So in here, I might say that my assignment is going to be, let's say, maths. It's a primary classroom, and we're working with year 3 or 4, and we're going to have a look at 2D shapes. Giving it instructions here, so it might be following on lesson. Please attempt the shapes task. Instructions I often find if you're going to give detailed instructions and maybe you're not attaching a resource, you are best to apply bullet points, and I find that universal regardless of the age of the student that I'm teaching. But if it's something minimal and the resource is going to speak for itself and the instructions are in the resource that you're attaching, then you don't have to give such detailed instructions there. You can also, if you want, embed a link. So maybe you're using an associated website that you subscribe to. It might be that if you were working in a primary school, you might subscribe in the UK to something like My Maths or SumDog, and you might want to link to an activity there where you can give the direct URL to go to. Or you could just leave it very simply as text-based. It's up to you just how much you use, but you've got basic formatting tools. Underneath here, with the instructions, you can attach and associate a resource with it. It can be a new resource. If you click New, it will give you one of the options to create a document either in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, in Microsoft Office 365, or you can go and create a OneNote. If your pupils or your students are familiar with using OneNote, that's great. If they're not, then just wait until you introduce that. Or the alternative here is that you can attach from an area where you've already got that resource prepared if you're not going to make it fresh. So you can go into your OneDrive. If you haven't used your OneDrive yet, it's like a storage area in the cloud, and you can keep all of your folders and your files that would have traditionally been on your computer or on a server, and they might be in your teaching folder, and you go in, you pick up something. So it might be, I'm going to have a presentation, I'm going to attach that, and now my presentation about 2D shapes is attached to my homework. It will upload, and it's going to be available there for the pupils to get hold of. Also in attachments, you can go to an existing class notebook and pick up a page or a class notebook. You can additionally, duplicating the ability in instructions, you can go to a link. So that's where you can link to a website. Might be for reference material, it could be for an activity. You can link across to other teams. So if you have permissions and you're not limited to one class team, it might be that I can go to another class team. I could go to their documents or their class materials. So I might go into Maths Oak class, and if there was a resource there, I can pick up the resource from the other classroom. So that sharing and collaboration is very, very strong, even within assignments in teams. The other option that you've got down there at the bottom is just to upload from your device. So it might be that you've created a resource or a file on your computer. It could be you've downloaded a PDF from another resource platform, and you're going to upload it and attach it here. So you've still got the ability to upload from a device. And if you're using a computer that looks at network shared drives because you've got a server wherever you work, it might be you've got a teacher shared area or a pupil shared area, you can also browse to those and pick up resources from there. So whether you're bringing them in from the cloud, OneDrive, Class Notebook and Teams, or a link to a web resource or a local resource, you can bring it in from there at the same time. The options on the side there, you can choose whether students can edit or students edit their own copy. So very often, if it's a homework, you don't want them to overwrite the original version, so students can edit their own copy. It's really key to change that out. That was something that Microsoft added to stop people all overwriting a single resource. Sometimes you get pupils and students coming back to you saying, why is the original copy all messed up, or why does it reflect what one particular pupil or student is doing? And that's because that option on the side wasn't changed. Moving down, when you're setting an assignment, you can give it points or you can actually leave it blank and have no points whatsoever. I tend to, if I'm doing something where it's important and the points are an integral part, I will add them in. So it might be up here. We are preparing for SATs as it is in the UK, which is what people do at the end of year 6. And I may be giving them a couple of practice SATs questions in the presentation that's been attached here. So it might be that there's 10 points available, and I'm going to say I'm going to mark them out of 10. If it's absolutely irrelevant, leave that box blank and it won't matter. Additionally, I mentioned when we were looking at the presentation earlier, you can add a rubric to give an extra depth of explanation. If the instructions box there just isn't going to cut it and you want to add clarity, particularly for when you're coming back to mark and grade, the rubrics are really key. If I go in to add a rubric, you'll see here I've got a list of rubrics that I've used previously, but you can add another one, or you can upload if you've got rubrics that you've used with other classes. So if you're going to start a new rubric, you click Add Rubric. The best way to think of these is if you're setting a piece of work, and in class you might be giving a learning objective, what you want the students or the pupils to be able to understand by the end of the lesson, and you might break them down into success criteria, which are small steps in learning. So the title would be the title of the aspect of the learning that you want them to demonstrate they are secure within. Description there to elaborate a little bit further, and then here you can break down the sections of learning. You can either add to them, so you've got two aspects that you're looking for them to demonstrate. So if it was 2D shape, you might be saying, look, 2D shape, I want to know if it's secure, and I want to actually know if you've got any knowledge for what we're going to move into next, which is 3D shape. And then you can describe it here. Microsoft populate it with poor, fair, good, and excellent. If you were in the UK, you might use some of the terms that we use for assessment. So it might be emerging, expected, exceeding, mastery. You might want to have it relating to how your school or your college marks progress and learning. So it might be mild, spicy, hot, if you're looking at this of levels of challenges that you refer to. And you can also get rid of them. So if you only want to have 3 levels, you can bin that, or you can add them back in there. So there's quite a bit of customization on a rubric. Let me take you in and show you a rubric that maybe is relevant to this. So here we've got 2D shape, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to press next, and in 2D shape, there was my title, 2D shape. Here I'm just simply going to tell the pupils I am expecting them to be able to identify 2D shapes and their properties. I'm only looking for them to demonstrate one thing from this activity, nothing else. So here I've used working towards, expected, working above, and mastery. If you're working towards, I'm expecting in people just to be able to name the different types of shape on a page, and expected, so forth, and moving up for them to be able to demonstrate. If I did want to add in here that they are able to identify 2D shapes, I would then 3D shapes, I would put that in there. And then I could explain in the same way the different levels that I would have for them to be able to show me in the homework that they're submitting back in. Just like you can have points with the homework and the assignment itself, you can have points with the rubric, and it will say, well, you're going to get 4 points if you're at mastery level and 1 if you're down here at working towards, or you can leave that toggled to off and have no associated points with the rubric. It's absolutely up to you and how you want that to work. I'm going to attach that, and now I've got that rubric included in my class so that they can pick that up. So over there is the 2D shape rubric, and I've got no points. So it's just sat on the side. I can press the cross to remove it as well if I want. Now I'm going to decide who I'm going to assign it to. So because I'm in my primary classroom demo, it automatically gives it to them. But if I've got a colleague and maybe they're working in another class, and I know it's a parallel class, I'm going to set the homework for them this week. Next week, they're going to set the homework for me. I'm also going to have it assigned to that class too. So I've got 2 classes there that I'm going to assign it to, and I've got them both listed in there. If I want to untick that and get rid of it and bring it back to mine, equally, it's really easy to do. I'm going to decide if I'm going to give it to all students that are in my class team, or whether I'm going to give it to individual students. It could be an extension activity as enrichment. Maybe I've got a gifted and talented group and I want to push them on further. It could be an intervention. As I said, I've realized I've got a gap in learning and I want to give them something to plug that, or I can give it to a designated group or individual student. So it's up to me how I want to do that. But for the purpose of today, I'm going to assign it to the whole class. You can choose the day it's going to be due in. By default, it will automatically pick today. Well, I don't want it to be today. I want it to be assigned on the Friday of the first week we go back to school. And the time that it's going to be due on that, the due date is going to be the Friday of the first week we're back at school. I want it to be in, let's say, by 3 o'clock that day, because I'm not going to have any pupils working at midnight. And then down here, you can choose whether the assignment is also pushed into the calendar for pupils and students, so it's an additional reminder. Some schools use calendars for pupils and others don't, but feedback overwhelmingly from pupils and students of all ages is they find it useful to have it in their personal calendar because they can go over here and they can see where there's a deadline to get homework in. And also you can have it so it posts out to a channel. So when you assign this, it will appear in the channel. And once we're ready to go, we've got everything as we should. I'm not going to save it this time. I'm going to assign it. That will assign immediately. I can see down here I've got maths 2D shape. If I was to go back into the general channel for my class, it's there, it's appeared, and for the pupils, they could view the assignment now from their calendar, or they can click on view assignment and they would see their own individual version of the assignment. They wouldn't see each other, so it's private to them, it's individualized work. And when they get their feedback as well, the feedback will be between me and them. It won't be seen by any other pupils or students unless they wish to share it with them. To go back in, what that looks like for me is here. But before I go into that and talk any further, I'm just going to show you what this looks like from a pupil's perspective or a student perspective. If I go into student view, when they open theirs, this is what they would see. There's the title, there's my very brief instructions, that's the associated presentation, which has got different pictures of 2D shapes. Here is the rubric, and probably as a teacher I would have gone, oh, I didn't actually give them an activity, maybe I didn't give it in the PowerPoint, so I could go back at any point and edit that and add a homework in there. You've got other things in here which increases accessibility, so instead of you having to produce differentiated worksheets in paper form, you can do things as a pupil or a student to increase your access to learning. So you could do things like switch on Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader strips back what the homework is there and it can be read to them, and they can also do things such as have it read in different languages as well. So if you've got EAL pupils, or you know you've got a range of languages in the class, well, as a teacher you produce that resource once, set it in Teams, and then they can have that resource adapted to suit their learning needs or their language needs, and that's all driven through using assignments. So that's setting an assignment and all the features of setting an assignment or a quiz. Before I move into Gradebooks and how to get marking, have I got any questions at all that anybody wishes to ask? I'm going to check the conversation. There's nothing in there at the moment. Anybody wish to unmute and ask anything?
Yes, Martin, I hope it's okay. It will be very fast. I don't know if it's relevant for the other teachers, but in my school, we're already using profusively Microsoft Teams. And the problem with the assignment, although it's all wonderful and we can share everything, is when creating a team class, we always have to add up one of our colleagues in case we are absent.
Yes.
The assignment that we assign to our class appears in the assignment of our colleagues automatically, so it's overcrowd their area when for them it's not relevant unless I would be absent. Is there a button or something where we can dismiss this assignment from appearing to a colleague that has been added to Teams originally?
Very good question, and at the moment I haven't seen an option to do that, unfortunately. You can deselect students, but you can't deselect colleagues. Okay. So thoroughly understand what you're saying, and it's really annoying that it clutters your calendar or your agenda when it's actually not entirely relevant to you because you aren't delivering that class. But at the moment I don't know of a way to stop that happening if they're associated as a joint member of staff in that class team.
Yes, okay, no worries at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all, or any comments and observations? I can see there's one in here from Emily. How do you create a new rubric? How do you upload it? How do you share it? Okay, let me pop back over there. So if I go back in to, let's a drafted assignment, let's English information text I have here, and go back and add rubrics. So here are rubrics that I've created previously. If I don't want them to appear, I want to get rid of them, I can press the cross on the side. To add a new rubric, it's here. And then on the side, I've got my rubrics that I can have a blank version and then plug in the information similar to the 2D shape version that I just demonstrated to you. If I go back into rubric again, go to upload, and you can drag and drop a rubric in from a CSV file. So when I said upload rubric, you create the text in columns on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, and then those columns can translate from a CSV file into the rubric. So while I had emerging, expected, exceeding, and mastery, those would be columns in a CSV, and then they will populate your rubric in here, so you can bring your rubric in. So you can take rubrics from other staff members, or you can take rubrics from other teams. Does that answer the question, Emily, or have you got anything else that you would you'd like me to recover there? I can see you're typing there. No problem at all. We're in the final part of today's session, and we are going to go through just how to mark in your grade book. I can already tell from some of the people's comments here that you are used to doing that, but it's really important that once you've set the work, you know exactly how to get it back in, and also how to then mark it when you've got it there. I'm just going to resave that. I'm going to go into my assigned work, and let's say I'm going to look at my class here, which I set some geography work. Once the students start to complete it, you will see the two returned lists. So if I go backwards just a moment and I look at my 2D shapes and maths, here I've just got 4 students. It's a very small class. I'm very, very lucky. Don't have many of them to teach. And because I've only just set it, it says not handed in. If they've looked at it, it will say viewed, but they've not completed it and returned it, or it will move across here to the returns tab. But because it's only just been set, it's not due until the first Friday of the first week back. Nobody at the moment has sent that back over to me. But if I just jump over to my demo Oak class here, and they've had some geography work set, here I can see that I've got 2 that are yet to return it, so they're clearly overdue, and I'll be having a word with them. And I've got 2 students here that have returned. You can, as a teacher, in your grade book, you can give things like individualized feedback. And here I've started a sentence, great, try this, and I might make a suggestion of what else to try next. It's going to improve their work when they get it back into me next time. I can also give a points there. This piece of work had 50 points associated with it. This is an example where I have used points. Because it's been marked and returned, it's got a green tick next to the side to signify to me, as well as saying returned there. If I want to go and view that work, I can click, come back over. I can click, let's say, I think Victorians has got some work there. I can go back in, and what I can do if I wanted to do is, just coming back, let's go to my return assignments in here. I can go back in and I can view the returned work. So this one didn't attach it. It was an online activity. I had to go and view in another online platform what they completed. So they were using an entirely separate platform to Teams. But here are my list of students. So I don't have to go one by one in my gradebook. I can click in and I can say, well, it was not handed in that instance. Say, okay, online work was completed except 10, please try again. It would be something more constructive than that, but it might be just very direct. Great, you've done most of it, but you need to do another bit. That feedback would go one-to-one to that pupil or that student. You can return it there if you want, or you can return it for revision, which is a fairly new feature that Microsoft had added in, but it means go away, revisit that. There's something you might need to just refresh or improve upon. It's not absolutely 100% yet, but you're pretty good. Or you could just return it back to them if it's definitively you're going to return that to them and give them their marks. So there we go. I've given no points. It's got a green tick. That purple box at the bottom, which had an option to return or return to revise, is now finished. And as far as I'm concerned as a teacher, I can drop the list down. I can go to the next person down the list. It will swap over, and it looks like I've marked just about everybody else in the list. Yep, good. As a teacher, I seem to have been pretty efficient. I pre-marked. It was just my demo student there that hadn't handed it all in. And I can see the history of what's been done. And here, where I've got that funny little picture, if it had have been a resource, and let me go to another team to show you what that looks like. Let me go into my secondary teams. It had have been a real resource, you would see in there the resource that you've got. So it could be my specialized sales assignment, and it might be that I've got the work there. Here I'm using a page from a OneNote class notebook, and we're looking at specialized sales. What I wanted them to do underneath my descriptors there of what I'd expect is the progress in their knowledge, they've worked across, and they're on this page here, they've gone through and they've used the lesson resources. So this is what I've said about you can attach a OneNote class notebook page. These are resources that we created in OneNote class notebook, and what I want them to do is have a go at the sales quiz here, which is a Microsoft form that's embedded into the page of the OneNote class notebook. What I can do is I can give that feedback there, and that can go back to them. So there's lots of different ways for me to use this, and then I can move between my class here, and I say, okay, so I need to go and see what Samuel's done with that same page. And then because this is a OneNote class notebook, as far as feedback, it doesn't have to be limited to the assignments module in Teams. It might be that in here you're going to insert some audio feedback. So on the page, I'm going to leave an audio note, and what it will say is, will it allow me to use my microphone in my web browser? It will. So it's now audio recording. So great, Samuel. Fantastic knowledge of the differences between plants and animal cells. I'm really pleased to see that you've identified that there is cytoplasm in both. Could you please go back and give me a little bit more explanation in the differences between the two types? And then that will then sit on the page, and instead of it being written feedback there, they can use the audio feedback, and they can play the audio feedback once I've stopped it in their slide on their work in OneNote class notebook, which is one of the reasons why OneNote class notebook is the perfect partner with assignments. And all they do is they play that audio clip. I tend to mix my feedback to scrolling with a stylus and inking on the screen, also marking up over something. So it might be that I've marked up over a picture here because they've answered something and I've written on it. It could be the audio feedback embedded in the OneNote there, or it could be the written feedback there in assignments. So there's lots of different ways to do that and get your feedback across. Once you've used your gradebook, if I pop back over to my primary classroom, you've got your gradebooks here. Well, your gradebooks can be viewed if you look across all of the assignments you've ever got. They're all stacked up. If you've marked them, you'll see if you've given a returned piece of work or you've given a mark as a number, it's there. If you've gone through and you think, well, actually, I've got everything I need there, but we don't keep our progress of learning in assignments, I need to get this out, you can export everything you've got in Teams out to an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can move it over to another MIS system where you can enter data, or you can enter judgments, or maybe you need to take it to a department meeting because you're moderating, you're discussing progress of a certain group of pupils or students. And instead of it being in Teams, you can have it on a spreadsheet. So it isn't wedded to assignments. You can get that grades work out and it can come across. Another useful aspect of grades that's been improved significantly recently is the insights. So we've got a demo version of insights today, but you will have a dashboard here which will tell you activity within your class team. It's really powerful as a teacher, or it might be you're in a secondary and you're head of department, or you're in a primary and you coordinate a subject such as maths and English, and you want to just dip into other class teams and see how resources are being used in Teams, what the uptake is, or whether we're getting much success with assignments. Well, down here you can see digital engagement with assignments for the last 28 days. So I could see in this class team I've got 5 missed submissions. Now that might flag that I've got a reoccurring set of pupils and I need to have a phone call home to parents, or I might need to work with them, or maybe they're struggling and they need some help, or it might be an accessibility issue, they've got a learning need. But what I can do is I can click on the assignment status, I can go in and I can have a look at those assignments that have been assigned previously, how many of them were assigned, how many were viewed, how many were turned in back and returned, and I can start to drill into that data, and I can search for an individual student as well if I want to. So if I wanted to just focus on Eldon instead of the whole class, then I can have a look at what's been going on for Eldon alone instead of all of my students as one. So the insights complements the grades really nicely and gives you much greater depth to drill down into what's going on with not just assignments but other aspects. But today we're focusing on assignments. The same could be true with if you want to have a look at average grades or average level of work turned in. And it can be, again, filtered for either all assignments, or I had two assignments there, one called Pride, one called the Scarlet Letter. And you can change the period of time to suit the area you're looking at. And you can also change the distribution view or to trend view if you wish as well. Or it's having a moment. It obviously doesn't like trend view. Let's see if I can just go back to distribution view. There we go. So there's another way to drill down beyond looking at the grades in your mark book. So assignments, perfect for going out and setting work, but also perfect for you as a teacher to mark and get work back. And if I said at the beginning, if you don't have everybody with you physically, maybe because of the disruption caused by COVID, you've still not got the ability to get everyone back into class with you. Assignments in teams is another fantastic way of still getting work out to them. It tends to lend itself best to substantial pieces of work, such as there's a project to get in, or regular weekly or bi-weekly homeworks. If you're going to set work in class, then maybe putting something into your post, maybe in the general channel, if you've got other channels in your class team, that might be a better way to get out daily work, or using OneNote class note work. But certainly assignments is best for that. Before we move on, have you got any further questions? I'm just going to go back and check. Emily, I can see you got another one here. How do I share with another staff member? Okay, so if you want another staff member to be able to pick up the assignments in your team, you need to assign them as a member of your team. So if you go up to here, now this is something that might be managed automatically if you've got what's called a data sync. And without getting too techie on you, a data sync means that Teams is linked to the database in your management information system or your school information system if you're joining us from the US. And it will then add the relevant members of staff or the relevant pupils and students automatically. And you don't have to do anything manually. If you haven't got that in your school or college, you can go down here to add a member, and then you can add a teacher in from there. So it might be that I've got Deborah, and Deborah is going to be co-teaching, or maybe she's just going to be somebody who's a cover supervisor, and she might teach my class from time to time. If I add Deborah Berger in as a member of staff, it means she'll be able to dip in and she'll be able to borrow those assignments and she'll be able to get them from there. So they need to be enrolled in the class and pick them up from there. You may also choose to change the security settings and leave yours absolutely open, or you might have somebody who's got higher level access. So for me here, I'm set as an administrator, so I can move between lots of different types of teams and pick up different assignment resources at the same time. But most commonly in a school, you'd add the other member of staff as a member. You may not have the rights to do that yourself if you're a member, not an owner. So you've got to be the owner of a class team to add a member. So you might have to ask somebody who is the owner, or you might have to ask somebody who administrates your IT systems to do that for you in order to get that sorted. But it's worth exploring that and discussing that before there's a dire need for somebody to borrow those resources. Before we go back over to the presentation to wrap up for today, are there any other questions linked to gradebooks in assignments or using those gradebooks? If there's not, I'll swap back over.
Hi. Sorry to be annoying. Can I possibly get you to go over that audio feedback one more time?
Yeah, absolutely I can. No problem at all. Let me just pop back across. I'll jump into my secondary demo, so that was where I was doing it. So in my secondary demo team, I assigned a page from my OneNote class notebook. If I go to my assignments, and in here I've just got a page I've been working in specialized cells. We go and have a look. So Enrico here has the page that I've used with my class during the lesson. So I've used my OneNote class notebook during the lesson, and they also have the resources from the lesson to refer to when they're outside of class to support them so that they can understand what we've been doing again during the lesson. In that OneNote class notebook, I embedded a Microsoft form, and that Microsoft form is their homework essentially. So I haven't sent anything separately. The OneNote class notebook is where the homework's embedded. If I want to give them some feedback about how they've answered the questions here in their quiz and how they've submitted it back, I can use the features in OneNote class notebook. So this isn't in assignments. This little pop-up here is OneNote class notebook itself sitting inside of assignments. If I want to give the audio feedback, I go to the Insert tab in OneNote class notebook. I click on the page of my OneNote class notebook, and then I can press the audio option here, and automatically when it goes in, the tab at the top then links to audio, and that little whirring circle there means that it's actively recording. So everything I'm saying now is being recorded. And when I've given my feedback, I press the stop button up here at the top, and then that locks itself to the page of the OneNote class notebook. So the OneNote class notebook is the item of work that I'm interested in. So as I said before, it could be fantastic work on cells. I can see you're really getting to grips with the differences between plants and animal cells. Could you give me 2 more examples of differences that appear only in plant cells and not animal cells? And for me as a teacher, I've given that feedback, so I press stop, and then when I press stop, it will lock that audio recording onto the surface of the page, and it's available for me to play back. I could play that back. I'm not going to get in because it will go over the top of what I'm saying now, or the student can play it back. One thing you just need to get them used to is that you will end up telling them, look out for the audio recording. I'll pop it onto the page of your OneNote class notebook, and then you can go and pick it up from there, and there's the little play button, and you can play it, or you can play it from the bar at the top. Either will work. Sometimes I've inked underneath your feedback is here, or please see feedback above, digitally inked it across. It's up to you how you want to signify that, or you could drop a text box onto the page there, and you could pop it in there. But that's how you leave that audio feedback. I've been able to do that in that example because I'm using a page from a OneNote class notebook, and I'm using the features in OneNote class notebook, which is audio feedback. Any more questions on that one? Happy to answer them at all. No? Okay. I'm going to swap back over to the presentation and we'll wrap up for today. One area that is coming quite soon, and I might just show you a very quick preview of that. Reading progress is going to be something that will appear in assignments during the autumn term. Microsoft promises it's sometime before Christmas. This is really useful, particularly for people that teach English. But what you can do is you can set a paragraph of text, and if people can go away and read it. Apologies, I've got a works van that's arrived outside of where I'm working. The people can go away and read, and it can check things like fluency of reading, the way that they articulate themselves with different words. It's easier if I show you a video, but as a teacher, that can then get analysed by machine learning and you get feedback. So it will be a new feature coming in assignments, but it's not available yet. So the pupil would click the text, play it, read the text, and they click I'm done at the bottom. That's automatically analysed, and then for you as a teacher, you get a feedback report on the text that's been read. Let me just click back there and pause it. So it will go through the piece of text you've given them. So in this instance, it was to read geography. It will give you an accuracy rate of the reading, and it will then give you a dashboard such as the Insights dashboard about how secure that pupil or student was with their reading or understanding that text. And that will be something that will come and join everything else that's already in assignments. Something else that's also in the roadmap, but we're not sure when it's going to come live, is that there will at some point be a roadmap release to get parents more easily into assignments. And I know that's been one of the big barriers to people giving up other subscription platforms if they've been using them. But at some point in the future, there will be the ability for parents or legal guardians to see the work that's been set for their child and see the assigned work that their child has to hand in on a given date, so that they can support their child with their learning that's set in teams. So they will be able to view that as a parent, logging in as a parent and not having to log in and look over their child's shoulder. That's something on the roadmap, but we've got no time frame for when that's becoming available, but that will be something that comes up at some point. I would hope in the next 12 months, because it will be a game changer, and I would imagine it will probably be a death nail in the coffin for a lot of those other subscribed services at the same time. Moving back through, let's go through and pick things up. We today are going to flick back over to the Microsoft Education Center. So the Microsoft Education Center is today where I have been using resources. I've given you a code. It's at the bottom of the screen there for you to be able to redeem from the Microsoft Education Center. The code itself can be popped in once you are logged in. Let me reshare that screen. I don't think it's pulled through for you. Let me just reshare that. Apologies. Okay, that's the code on screen for you now. It can be redeemed in the Microsoft Education Center. For any of you that aren't familiar with the Microsoft Education Center, I will pop the URL into the conversation now in Teams, so you can pick it up from there. If you've already got an account, then you are logged in. You go to your name and you can redeem the code there. I'll pop a set of instructions on screen next of how to do that. So you log in on the top right hand corner of the Microsoft Education Center. When you get there, you can use your school provided email address or a personal email address. Choice is yours. There's a box that pops out once your initials are there instead of where it says sign in, and it says redeem achievement code. I've circled it there in blue. And then a box will pop up in the middle of the window where you can pop in that redeem code, and then that will instantly credit you for having done some bespoke work with us this morning, and it will give you 1,000 points in the Microsoft Education Center. So if you aren't an MIE, a certified MIE, a Microsoft Innovative Educator, you will automatically get that badge awarded to you, because it will detect that you've done 1,000 points worth of study by working through how to use assignments in Teams. So that code is there on screen for you in the top right hand box, and the two screenshots at the bottom will just walk you through where to go to pick up that code and redeem it. One of the other things that I would desperately love you to give me this morning is 5 minutes of your time, probably not even 5 minutes, 1 or 2. If you could give me some feedback, I'm also popping into the chat there a Microsoft form. It's a very quick evaluation form. In all honesty, I've rattled through it as a demo person. I did it in less than 1 minute. It's a lot of boxes to either tick or rate, and there is an option to put a comment in if you wish at the bottom, either for feedback from today's session or suggestions for what you might like to see at future sessions, because we run a lot of sessions with Microsoft. We're a Microsoft global training partner, and we work with Microsoft to put on content all of the time. We also work in partnership with Hayball, who we're working with today. So you can join us for other sessions. We'll look at other aspects of Teams, but also we'll have things such as OneNote Class Notebook and sessions on forms as well. So if you haven't touched upon those, and I've mentioned those today, and you're thinking not quite sure how to get the best out of those, well, join us. We will deliver future sessions on those as well. So while you're redeeming the code and giving evaluation, I'm quite happy to take any further questions, or if you've got anything that you're doing in your own school and you think it'd be really beneficial to share that with the others that are here today, please feel free to talk to us about it. At this point, I'm going to suspend the recording, and any other questions that you ask will not be recorded.